Greetings, YouTube. Welcome to Sunaru Gaming. I'm SlySR. Joining me is Graham Pike, author of New Earth magazine. Today's talk and discussion is around shoot 'em ups, more sort of traditional, classic arcade type shooters, etc., throughout the different generations of consoles. Similar question to always as the first one is, what's your first experience of a shooter or memory of seeing a shooter?
Yeah, well, I think I've already mentioned this before, was back in the 80s when I was in the arcades. It was a game called Phoenix. I think,
Yeah.
well, obviously you had, what's it called now? One where they're all sort of going down, ding, 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 and they're all coming down.
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, yeah. I remember that one, but I never really enjoyed that so much. I liked it later on in my, because you'd get like the PS2 version or something, and the graphics were, and I sort of got into it to a certain, but I never really got into that. But there was probably the prevalent ones was Phoenix, which was my favourite, really good game, which I say we talked about, and also there was Asteroids, which I was always useless at. Which basically it's very much like, what do they call them, like vector graphics, like black background, little white sort of lines outlining the craft, and then little things coming. But basically, you were in the centre of the screen. All you could do was move around a bit, but you could fire in like a 360 degree. And it was hard, and I never mastered that one. The Phoenix was more simple. You just moved along the bottom of the screen. You had left and right, temporary use of a shield, and obviously firing things. And that was like, yeah, it was good because it progressed from small sort of alien birds to big alien birds, to eventually this massive screen-filling spacecraft. And it was simple, very simple by today's standards, but had this like mournful music, which was started it off, you know, like as it came on. It was like a little bit of classical music done on like a little buzzy synthesizer sound, but it was really good. And another early one I mentioned before called Scramble, which was horizontal, left to right, typical weapon things coming at you in air, ground sort of guns and things firing up at you. And you could like drop little bombs whilst firing along. And then what was even harder was, first you were just in like free space whizzing along, then you went into these like tunnels, if you like, that went up and down, so you could hit them and damage yourself as well. So it was very intense. But I say, I can remember in those days, my whole sort of body was moving, and it was because you'd a lot in pubs, you'd be standing up and you just have like, and at the end of it, but the funny thing that, which I haven't had for a long time, and then you told me about Streets of Rage 4 and PS4, which isn't the shoot 'em up, but I've been playing that a lot recently, and I'm getting the same, finishing the game and feeling like really tired. I haven't had that for a long time. So that's kind of good. It's like, I'm getting that intensity. You just really have to concentrate and bashing your buttons a lot and moving and doing the right thing at the right time, or you're dead, sort of thing.
They did a great job with that.
They did. And which is very much why shoot 'em ups are so intense, because you've got that mixture of, depending on what type of shooter you've got, it's always very much reaction time plus strategic. You know, some like R-Type or Pulsar on the Neo Geo, you really have to be in the right place a lot of the time. Whereas other ones, you could, like with bullet hell, you're negotiating patterns of waves of bullets, and other ones you're just reacting well and adopting a strategy compared with, like quite often you have to work out, you can't take out everything on the screen, which is going to get you furthest, which is going to get you the most points, or the power them up, that sort of thing. And that's what I like about shoot 'em ups. You can, like, God knows how many things come out, and if one gets past you, you shot like 65 and one sneaks past. So that's how you get. At first you just want to survive, but then you're thinking, no, what all the points? The only thing I don't like in some shooters I've seen, there's lots of points, and like could be anything from like golden diamonds to anything coming your way. Sometimes you're not quite sure what's what, which one's the firepower, which one's the. And I don't like that. You should definitely know what's good for you and what isn't good for you. Because you can't react properly if you think what's going on. But but most shoot 'em ups, it's fairly obvious. I quite like the clever ones. You have to stop firing, and if you stop firing, it attracts all the points, diamonds, and point them towards you. Okay. So that's a good little strategy, because it makes you vulnerable. But instead of like having to move into them, they all sort of suck into you.
Do you know what? The entire time playing shooting games, I've never tried that.
Yeah, so some it does. You know, it's just I was just trying to see if it works because I can't remember which ones have that in it. There's been a few where it's just worth not shooting for. Because most shoot 'em ups, even if nothing's on screen, I just carry on firing because something's going to appear at some time, and
Yeah.
even if you happen to be in the right place, you'll catch it. If you don't, say once it's got onto screen, it's moving around and it's dropped. Most things, you're thinking you want to get it before it lets loose its own firepower. Because, as you know, some of them just try and run into you. Some of them actually have their own firepower. But yeah, going back to the originals, it was all very simple stuff. But they were hard. I mean, they had to make up for the simplicity with making them, even like Space Invaders. Yeah, when you first start playing it, it's next to impossible to get there. And they'd soon be coming down. But you learn how to deal with it. Your action time went up. You took on a strategy, and you could do it. Same with Phoenix, and just that's what I like about most games. You don't even like work it out in an intellectual way. You sort of your subconscious or your gaming sort of brain works out what's going on. If you like it, occasionally you see somebody else do it. Oh yeah, I'll do it. But mostly you just sort of work it out with all type of reactionary sort of games where it's so fast you don't have a lot of time to think. You sort of through experience plus your gaming brain, you sort of latch onto a technique which is going to get you through. Otherwise,
definitely.
You don't get through it.
I think I found that a lot of people, is when they first start playing those sort of arcade shooting games, they try and shoot everything as well. And I think you learn early on that you shouldn't always shoot everything, and using the sort of bombs and special moves is more of a because you find that most or a lot of shooting games, the special move allows you to dodge, especially in sort of bullet hell games, allows you to dodge loads of bullets coming at you as much as it is destroy everything on the screen. It's sort of learning to use that as a more defensive type maneuver and use your main weapon as an attack.
You get things like quite often you'll want to collect. There'll be lots of different power-ups, but there'll be some of them might be different colours. You want to collect 3 or 4 of the red ones or the blue ones or the gold ones in a row, and often you have to shoot off their outer exterior to collect them. And it's all that sort of thing of getting it in the right order, which initially you don't do. You're just blasting away, picking up whatever comes your way, and it's not doing you good because you're not getting everything powered up.
You mentioned Polestar.
Polestar,
yeah. So that was a big one in our Neo Geo and arcade discussion, and I've played that game since. That's something I really struggle with. So I get the whole reading as it comes along, sort of learning the patterns and things. I just find it so frustrating. I find that so much more difficult than something. Is it Ace Combat 2 or something that's on the
on Neo?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you get something like Aero Fighters.
I think that's it. Aero Fighters 2.
That's based. Yeah, that's a really good game. Like that's a bit like Raiden, which is just flying up screen, taking on things that come in different. I mean, Polestar was done by some of the developers who worked for IREM, who did R-Type, which is like totally iconic. But that is really, I think it's not quite as frustrating as R-Type. I've played R-Type games I've just given up on. I think with Pulsar, I liked it so much and it was so well presented, and I just wanted to keep going, But yeah, it is difficult, and there's bits where you get bits later on where you're going through these little like sort of organic tunnels, and then things move around you. If you get yourself in the wrong place, you're never getting out of it. You're dead, and you have to go back to beginning of stage or whatever you have to do, depending on how many lives. And it is very hard. It is strategic, and I'm not a person that likes having to worry about exactly where I'm on time. But I don't know. Just with that game, I liked it so much. I was so drawn into it. I just kept going, But I don't think I could do it again and again.
It looks great. It sounds great. It's something I would enjoy watching someone play. Playing it myself, I just get frustrated at myself. And or something I know is coming, and I've just reacted a fraction of a second late, and something's hit me.
I mean, it is a thing. Something's coming, but it just slips your mind, or you're watching something else on screen, and boom, it gets you. Oh God, because it's not like you lose a bit of health point or something. You've got to go back, and it's like, But yeah, the sense of the sense of satisfaction of completing that game was pretty. I mean, I tried when I was doing my magazine. I tried to do like a guide because I finished it, but not easy to do because you're right. You know, I wasn't giving many visual examples because this is pre-internet and I didn't have a PC even. So it was like trying to do it all, you know, in text of how to get through these things. And I'm hoping that within there was some ideas which would help people because, yeah, there were sometimes just obvious techniques. There's the usual one which is used again and again. You get this serpentine thing comes up. And what part do you have to shoot on it? You have to shoot its head. You can shoot, you know, you can shoot away at its other bits. But you can, like with Polestar, you can just save up a because you hold the weapon, then you get a pulse thing. Boom, the head comes up, boom, hit the head. Quite often, the whole thing just disappears. You get that in a lot of games. That's a traditional shoot 'em up sort of feature. But there's lots of little things like that. You know, you just got to. I can understand why people would give up on it, but that's one of the few of that type of game. I say the R-type of shoot 'em up, which I did stick with. I think R-type fine and a couple of R-types. I just never. I just got like yourself, got frustrated with it and just stopped playing it.
Yeah.
But with Polestar, I didn't. Yeah, it had a kind of sequel called Blazing Star. Which it was good, but it's a shame with Blazing Star. It's a shame that they said it was a sequel. If they just said, "Oh, this is another shoot 'em up on the Neo Geo or whatever," people are, "Oh, it's a good little shoot 'em up." Saying it's a sequel to Polestar, you compare it, and it just isn't quite as good.
Adds all sorts of connotations to it.
Yeah, you're expecting the best of the best. Of its type, I say Polestar is one of the best of the best. Blazing Star, not only graphically, they changed it quite a bit. It didn't have the sort of sharpness. It was almost like more old-fashioned, sort of what we used to call hand-drawn 2D graphics. And I liked it, and it's a really good game. But I wish I'd never thought of it because it's hard not to, you know, you can't help but judge it against it rather than just see it as a.
Yeah.
And I think there are really the old-fashioned. There's really two types of old-fashioned shoot 'em up: horizontal and vertical. You know, so you've got isometric and you've got into the screen, but that's not really traditional into the screen. But you've got all these different sort of ways. But basically, they're the two most. And I often think to myself, which one do I like the most? I think instinctively, I tend to prefer horizontal. I've just enjoyed so many up-the-screen ones, and they tend to be very reactive. That I like them both. You can't really say, but if I had to choose one, I'd say horizontal. But it's very, very close. You know, I like them both. But,
you mentioned Space Invaders and Phoenix and a couple of earlier ones. I've noticed that playing sort of things like the Mega Drive and the SNES and now some of the Neo Geo stuff is that there's a lot more, certainly with Neo Geo, one thing I found with the Neo Geo games is there's usually a lot more character selection than there was on other consoles. Is that, do you feel that was around the time, the 90s or early 90s, maybe late 80s, I could be wrong, where they started to bring in sort of more characters and things into shoot 'em ups rather than just use a spaceship?
Yeah, and also to give you a different experience because each character usually has its strengths. I mean, they've had it in like even in the R-Type and Pulse or R-Type. You chose the different types of craft in a lot of the Neo Geo games. Sometimes, you know, like you can start. You've been used to one craft, you go to another one. Oh my God, this one's useless. But it's not necessarily that used. You just haven't got used to it, and it's. Yeah. But you know, I tend to. I must admit, I'm a bit of a cow when it comes to once I find a machine or a person or an aircraft that I like playing the game with, I tend to stick. So with Streets of Rage, I always play Axel. No, I do try the other ones, but most of the time, once you get good at something, especially in a game as hard as like R-type games, well, I'm not going to make it worse for myself. That's why I quite like Aero Fighters 2 was a good vertical shooter because you had very different types of pilots as well as you had quite a few different craft. Well, they all had their own different craft to different pilots. So yeah, they were quite different in operate. But you get a lot of shoot 'em ups. I mean, a lot of hardcore shoot 'em up fans would say the 80s, but I still think the 90s is when it got really good. But it carried on. I mean, through systems like the 360 and now the PS4. There's some and obviously the brilliant Dreamcast. They really kept, especially in Japan, they've always had this interest. And they've made the graphics and the music and everything even more and more intense and more colourful and psychedelic. It's just really good. Since the Neo Geo faded out, so at the end of the 90s, I often said, why can't they just produce the old games with modern graphics, modern sounds, if you like.
Mm.
Because they're still great games, but they look a bit pixelated, a bit fuzzy, or a bit crappy. If people saw them, like they did with the fighting games like Street Fighter, suddenly they brought, they're bringing them into the, the 2000s and 2010s and that, and it's like, whoa, this looks good, and people are more attracted to it than looking at some pixelated fuzzy thing from the 90s or 80s. I've been saying there's so many old-fashioned games that were really good. They could just up the graphics, up the sound, up the the fluidity of it all. If they can even tweak the gameplay a little bit, and keep the game as it was. Not you don't always have to change things. I mean, innovative gameplay is brilliant, especially into the 3D world. But I suppose I'm still stuck a little bit in the 2D of what I like the most, really.
I think game companies and developers, or certainly not just the developers themselves, is about what makes money. They're afraid a lot of the time to completely reinvent. I mean, even something you could have the most successful. I mean, Street Fighter and to a lesser extent King of Fighters, I guess, and Tekken and things like that. Like you're saying, the graphics it's the same sort of gameplay, but the visuals has improved.
Yes.
I can only presume that it's because shooters are not as popular as fighting games, that it's not continued to spiral in the same sort of way.
No, I think only in Japan did the shooter rival the one-on-one fighting game. In the West, it's definitely been a one-on-one fighting game. It was king for quite a few years. I don't know I guess now it's Call of Duty and games like that. I mean, 3D games have been around since the 80s. It's not a new thing. But I don't see there's anything wrong in having 3D looking graphics with a 2D game. Why not?
Makes sense.
And even like adding little dimensional shifts, like jumping to the back of the screen or front of the screen, or just having that sort of makes a lot of difference. I think games don't need to be revolutionary; they can just be evolutionary, if you like. Just move along a little bit and get better and better, hopefully. But as you say, everything's played safe. But now you've said that, it made me realise it's when they got downloaded games onto the 360, PS3, and PS4 and the One. It must be cheaper to get sorted out, mustn't it? If they can reproduce Neo Geo games for £5.60 or whatever they cost now, so it's got to be somebody, Hamster or whatever it's called. We can earn some money doing it. They didn't do it for love. I'm sure they do love the games, but they did it to make money as well. I think they couldn't, when it was only you've got to produce a hard copy, i.e. you've got to have a nice production thing which costs a lot of money in itself. You've got to produce 100,000 or 1 million or however many you need to make money. That's a big outlay. Whereas if we'll produce it, we'll put it in downloadable form to PlayStation, PlayStation, Sony, and that. So I think that's what's made it possible. Nothing against it, but I find these little indie developers, they do some great things. But I much prefer if you've got a company. You've got so many good companies that have been going for, like Cave. They've produced some really brilliant shooting games over the years. And you just got people either using their original programming and putting it into a new system. But no, I think it is the downloadable game, I suppose, has been the rebirth of the old-fashioned game, if you like, the arcade games and that, which can be produced.
It's funny touching on the indie games, indie game developers particularly, is you're right. I think they always feel more like a homage to what they're trying to achieve than the actual thing. And the only time where I personally found the indie games to sort of level about the same level as those big developers, not necessarily AAA ones, is with the horror genre. That's sort of the only one where they can sort of compete, because they can still use atmosphere and things like that without having to have really flashy graphics, and sometimes it is as good or better. But there's a lot of clones of loads of different things out there, essentially. There's some good ideas, but I think you're right there. I mean, there's probably quite a few shoot 'em ups on the indie developer side of things, but I've not checked that out enough really to know enough about it.
I mean, some of them are good, but I always found it in the earlier days, it tended to me feel like there were shoot 'em ups which belonged on a PC rather than belonged in an arcade or on a console.
I see.
I don't know, they didn't have the sort of visceral draw you in quickly, wham bam. They're always trying a bit clever, some smart graphics that didn't quite work 100%. That's what I thought about the indie ones. They just didn't have that feel. They didn't. They didn't have the glamour. They didn't have the power. You know, they didn't have the something about them which made them, to me, worthwhile getting. I'm not trying to be snobby. I don't care who produces the game, but if it's brilliant. You know, I'm not a software developer fanatic. There's nobody, you know, yes, Treasure and Cave and companies like Moss and G-Rev have done some fantastic games. I don't think, I'm only going to get that because it's the developer I think is great. You know, I don't even care. I just look at the game. If you see a YouTube video of it or somebody, and I see, that's really good. That's my style, you know. And the good thing I like about shoot 'em is that, yes, a lot of them are very, very similar. They're all of a type. But if it's like anything, if you like something, you get the subtleties. You appreciate the subtleties. You appreciate the little nuances or the little bit of evolution, like I said before, which makes you want to have a go. And I can get fed up with shoot 'em ups because they are hard. You know, and if you don't play them regularly, you go pretty crap. You can get back into it, you know, not too long, but it's depressing when you used to wham through a game that you haven't played it for 2 years or something. You get out, oh God, you know, I'm useless. You know, I had that with Viewpoint.
Oh, really?
Bangai-o, which is, I never finished it. I got, you know, well into it, or down the near towards the end, and then went to visit friend Fraser, and we had a quick go on, and I was just like, oh my God, you know, I couldn't even remember, you know, because again, that's a game you have to remember bits as well as react to stuff. Yeah, if you want to talk about brilliant shoot 'em up, Viewpoint, it's got to be in the top few. I don't know why people don't. I was, knowing we were going to talk about shoot 'em, I was having a quick look at people's top 10 shoot 'em ups, and I hadn't seen anybody mention Viewpoint. I mean, there's a lot of there's the classics like Radiant Silvergun, Ikaruga, they're both by Treasure, like we said before, and a lot of cave games like Katana and that. They're fantastic. I love them. Death Smiles is one of my all-time favorites. But Viewpoint, it's just, there's nothing else like it. It's just a brilliant. I don't know if you've got it yet or you've played it.
Not yet. I will get it. I think I'm going to get it very soon. It's something that stands out. Because I've that exact thing, seeing it on YouTube. I mean, you mentioned it and I went and had a look and was like, oh, wow, that looks fantastic. Like sort of an isometric view.
I love that
moving along. It looked great, and it looked different from everything else on that system as well. Which
there isn't another game on the Neo like that, and there aren't that many games like it. It's on any system that I know about. Obviously, I haven't seen every single shoot 'em up, and I've had phases where I just haven't played much, so I'm out of touch. But no, I don't recall many other games, and they just did it so well. Again, not only is it really good to play, and it's very satisfying to progress in, but it is rock hard. Well, the original one wasn't. It was just such an entertaining game. The music was good. It starts off this sort of like lounge jazzy sort of sound, and it goes into all sorts of like, there's some real sort of rappy type stuff and that house music, I suppose you call it, because you're talking 90s here. But yeah, all that sort of music which I would turn off, it was on the radio. It worked so well with the game. I was loving it, you know. And in those days, you didn't have much in the way of singing, but in this, you just had people going, hey, and stuff like that, and just sort of shouting bits of. And it was just like, wow, you know, it was just different. Another game I mentioned previously, Darius Gaiden and its sequels. They had some lovely singing on it. It's almost like operatic, but futuristic operatic, if you like. It's just really good. It just draws you in. Again, back to the Viewpoint thing, I think that's hard to beat on every level. Challenge, quality of sort of gameplay, quality of graphics, quality of sound. It's just brilliant.
I'll definitely get around to that one.
Yeah, again, it's a bit tricky at first because there's a lot coming at you, and there's quite an early stage where you've got this like little paddles, and you have to like fire into the paddles, and they open the gate. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you just wham into the gate. You can't get past it. You know, little things like you can either do like pulse shoot or fast shoot, and that's right at the beginning. That's early on, and you get everything coming at you from great big mechanoid crabs, springs going boing boing boing, sort of golden fish, all sorts of things coming out, all sorts of bugs and entities, and it's just that you just can't wait to see what's coming next. That's what I felt about it at the time, and even now I think, oh yeah, that was good. That and say that the style of music.
Yeah, I suppose that feeds into what you mentioned before about digital games and how it's allowed people to get in touch with older games again, and
Definitely.
Sort of shows that it doesn't matter when the game was made. If it's a good game, it stands out. It still stands up today. Viewpoint looks like it will be one of those. I mean, just on a point with shooters of a different kind, with shock troopers that that I kept talking about in the other video. And that's something
That
I'd
is-
never played, and now it's sort of I play it so much all the time. I don't know how many times I've completed that
yeah,
game, and now I'm trying to get other people into it, and other people are enjoying it. So it
yeah. Some
shows that they
people,
do just translate forwards.
yeah. I mean, a good fun. It's like playing tennis. That hasn't changed for decades or centuries. Still
Mm,
a good game to play. It doesn't get such a good video game. It should be good to play. Obviously,
mm,
people are going to be a bit sniffier if it's got like crappy old graphics, or some people like crappy old graphics. Yeah, I mean, like Shock Troopers. Some people say that isn't a traditional shooter.
mm,
Why that? Because it's so big, but because it's up screen, it's across the screen, it's diagonal. There's a little bit of freedom of movement. It's not on rails. Well, it is on rails, but you feel like
mm.
I'd say I'd put that in the traditional shoot 'em up.
Yeah, I
Feel,
mean, what else would it come under? I mean, that's the other thing.
yeah.
All you're doing is shooting, pretty, and
Oh,
strafing, and I mean, there's a couple of like a dodge roll, but you're
yeah.
shooting. I don't know what else that would come under. Maybe an action.
No.
It's an action shooter, I suppose, but
Yeah. I
it
mean,
doesn't
yeah,
really
yeah,
describe it.
yeah. Some people say like Metal Slug isn't a traditional shoot 'em up because you can get up close and weapons
Mm,
and use your knife on them. But I like in my little bubble, the gaming world, Shock Troopers, Metal Slug. There's the traditional shoot 'em ups. Yeah,
mm,
there's a bit more. It's not just a spacecraft or something.
yeah,
It's because it's like directly people. I
yeah.
think that's what people might not think it's. But I think
Well,
I think it's
if
just
the
a
main
little bit of an
mechanic is
evolution.
shooting, how else are you going
Yeah,
to define it?
yeah. I just say it's a little bit of an evolution, really.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Zero Gunner 2, which is I've told you is probably one of them, probably if not my favourite shoot 'em up. It's that was like suddenly you could shoot, all around. It's like because you're in a helicopter rather than a.
Mm,
So even though it's sort of on rails and you're either going up sideways or slightly diagonally, you can pretty much. I think it's 360 on that one. You can
mm,
move through on a three. So that's very much part of the skill is because it adds to it. You're not just worrying about the God knows how many enemies and enemy missiles, but
mm,
where are you going to strafe? Are you going to like move around and fire? And any shoot 'em up, your controls have got to become automatic. If you've got to think
mm.
about your controls, you're dead. That's
Yeah.
as simple as that. You will be very soon anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the one trick about shoot 'em up. You've got to be not thinking about
Yeah.
you got to think of what strategy you're going to adopt, but you don't have to think, well, what button do I have to press?
There seems to be an inherent human need to just sub-categorize everything. Slug and Shock Troopers are quite a good one of that because the main mechanic would be shooting, so it would sort of fall under shoot 'em up. But then it's sort of people would move it around, like you were saying. The hardcore gamers would see that as not a traditional shoot 'em up, so therefore it becomes a platform shooter, or it becomes an on-rail shooter. It becomes So I mean, it's the like you were saying, is an evolution. But there also seems to be an inherent need for us to put so many. I mean, you can say the same with music. There's so many subgenres of everything these days.
I agree with you. I mean, it's just human nature to get precious about something and to think
Mm,
that what you say. So I've said I look into the shoot 'em up fanatics and all that, and listen, see if I could learn something. But a lot of the time, it was great. If it's not this, it's not authentic. It's not real. It's a bit like going completely off subject. Unoffended telecast. I was looking at
mm.
that. They said if it hasn't got those like two or three nuts sort of on the bridge where it's got instead of having separate
Yeah,
it hasn't got that. If it hasn't got those three ones, it's not a telecaster. I mean,
yeah,
it's just like
that's ridiculous.
yeah, and it's just that yeah, it's there's a lot of people saying stuff like that. And I was thinking at
Yeah,
first you think, well, perhaps they've got a point, and then you think, no, it's just somebody being stupid. It's
yeah.
uh,
There's so much more to what defines a guitar than
yeah,
the particular screws in a bridge. And again, the more guitar designs evolve, the entire thing changes. What you see now is
yeah.
completely different to 20 years ago. It's you're right. I mean, it's silly.
Well, I don't mind people having a view. Well, I'm happy for people to have a viewpoint, but when they start going on about it, you think, no, it's just like religion. It's just
Mm,
your opinion. Don't start telling me what's this, that, and the other. But I just ignore them. Really, there's no point confronting.
yeah.
It's a bit like people you get as you come across on certain forums. They just tend to talk nonsense
Yes.
and
Yes.
or get very very pompous and And there are lots of people that,
elitist
yeah,
bastards, I think, is a good term.
yeah. But what are they being elite about?
Yes,
I mean, I
well,
suppose
exactly.
I think most people that are getting good at anything or know a lot about something tend to be fairly open-minded and humble about it, and are happy to dispense their knowledge and hope in themselves to learn something new. But the sort of person that we're talking about doesn't want to learn anything new. They think they've got it all wound up. So
it's true.
it's like, how can you learn anything when you think you know it all already? So anyway.
So what would you say the elements you would need to make a good shoot 'em up?
There's the obvious. Obviously, you've got to have the gameplay, haven't you? I mean, and I think you've got to feel totally in control. You've got to think of what's happening, even though you may get killed a lot to start with, or as the game gets harder. You've got to feel there's a sort of fairness to it, that it's accurate, not that it's like I don't like. It's just with a game. It's not a traditional game. My wife played called Earth Defense Force. It's it's full of jam-packed full of aliens and bugs and things. But in the most recent one, which I do enjoy, before, if you had you were taking on a load of ants, if there were going to be some new ones appear, it would be key as they dropped from an aircraft, spaceship, or they came out from under the ground. There's these nest holes. And this new one, they just appear. You think you've gone at you think you've got rid of them, or because there's you get a sort of radar view of the area. Suddenly, there's where did they come from? There's no. Normally you make it part of the story. Oh, there's a nest over there. You've got to go and get it. If you don't get rid of that nest, they come in again and again and again. It's a bit like a big old achievement. If you don't kill something, it's going to keep going at you. You've got to get rid of it. Especially
they just spawn out of nowhere.
Yeah, which I find frustrating. It's almost like you've got because like with that particular game, we will start easy, normal, hard, very hard, and whatever the next one's called, Inferno or something. And when it gets very hard, that sort of thing starts happening. I'm thinking, well, I know it's going to be hard, but don't make it so there's no sense to it at all.
Yeah.
You've got to have a sense of reality in the world that you're in, even if it's a world of a little spacecraft flying through space or above a jungle or wherever it is. You've got to have something to make you think you're part of something. So usually have a little story, don't they? Like these things have come out of nowhere. They've attacked Earth, they've destroyed all the major cities. What are you going to do about it? All we've got this lovely craft. You get in it, go and try and save the world. Very standard fare, if you like. So my view is, so that's good. You set up. You've got a reason for being there, and the little world, however limited it is, has got to make sense. It's got to be part of. All you may be doing is blasting your weapon, using your limited supply of bombs, and other little factors. There's only about 3 things you can do apart from dodging and moving around. But it's all got to make sense. There's all got to be a purpose to it, and you've got to think that yes, it's going to get really hard, but you've got to think there's one that's fair, and 2 that it fits in with that little gaming world. That's already to me that's really important. Otherwise, what's the point? It's not. I'm not just there to test my reflexes or test my memory. I want an experience. I want to feel like I'm part of something, and I get a buzz out of it.
Especially if they brought a tradition in the other games of putting some sort of story in or very brief thing, and they come out of like the buildings or they come down from a ship. So if you spent all the other 3 or 4 games doing that, and then there's just bits of this latest one that you keep the experience.
Doesn't follow it. There's no rhyme or reason for it. But moving that subject on a little bit, on Dreamcast, you had 2 shooting ones, one Giga Wings and Giga Wings 2. Giga Wings, the original, was a bit like a Neo Geo or that sort of 90s or early 2000s, up the screen shoot 'em up, big 2D graphics, lots of things to pick up, and it was a good little game. Really enjoyed it. A lot of fans. Then they brought out Giga Wings 2, which suddenly it went slightly more photographic in its thing, and it didn't play quite as well. But for me, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like Giga Wings 2." I love it. The music is brilliant. The graphics are really atmospheric, so it kind of made up for the gameplay not being quite spot on. It wasn't so arcadey, not so sort of visceral, if you like, but it made up for it because it's just like the music and the visuals were so impressive that you just sort of liked it. So for me, I'm not saying it's as important as a gameplay, but for me, it made it almost as enjoyable experience. I wasn't anti-Giga Wings 2. It wasn't as good as 1, but I don't know. I almost enjoyed it as much. In some cases, that doesn't work, like we've discussed before. Shock Troopers 2, it's in some ways more impressive than 1, visually and other ways. It just doesn't play as well. It's not.
No.
But in that case, they didn't make up for that. It sort of made up a little bit, but not enough to make it as good. So again, it's all that balance. It's all that balance and that. So again, you've got to have gameplay, fairness, drawn in, nothing, and the world works. But all those things balance out. Some things are better than others.
I like Gunbird 2. I was quite a big fan of Gunbird. Again, personality and the characters and the world's just a bit silly and over the top. I don't have it, but I like the look. I saw a video of is it Captain Tomaday?
Oh yeah,
there's like a tomato thing, and he's punching them. That looks hilarious. That just makes me want to try it.
Yeah, I suppose it's not technically a shoot 'em up because you're not shooting things.
No, you're not.
But in every other way, it looks like a shoot 'em up. It's a little thing going through on the rails. But yeah, no, that's good. Good little game. I wouldn't say it was up there with the big boys like Viewpoint and Metal Slug. But no, it's enjoyable little game. I do. They'll suddenly put a shoot 'em up stage in a fighting game or something like that. It's really weird. Or an adventure game. Suddenly you're in like a traditional shoot 'em up.
Oh, that reminds me. Is King of Fighters has a shoot 'em up, doesn't it? Is it Sky Stage?
Does, yeah.
On the 360. Yes. It just seems so ridiculous that King of Fighters in a shooting game.
Yeah.
But,
I think it's again the sort of probably a Japanese influence of it's a popular genre.
Yeah.
I was just thinking there's another type of shoot 'em up which is like an adventure shoot 'em up. I don't mean as in Call of Duty. I mean you used to get them where you'd be wandering around like a planet, almost like a role-playing game, but the whole aim of it was to shoot stuff. And I'm just trying to think of titles of ones. But no, I suppose mainly when I'd say traditional shoot 'em up, I tend to mean horizontal, vertical, or combination of our diagonal, or in some cases isometric.
I think
isometric
that's where. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's where I suppose it makes sense to differentiate with subgenres of things like that, because it's very much the term shooters now is probably looked at for first-person shooters particularly, and then shoot 'em ups. When someone says shoot 'em ups, it's exactly what we're talking about, more arcadey type shooter. And then you do have it's almost dying out a bit. Where it's very rare is the third-person shooter, where you're looking over someone's shoulder and they've got a gun.
Yes. Just behind them, yeah.
The Hunter games. Was it the Hunter games you were talking about earlier?
Yes. That was the other day, wasn't it? Yeah.
That just clicked. Those were fun.
I say there was a House of the Dead one that was like that, but I can't remember that. I should have looked it up since we talked about it, but these things slip your mind. Yeah, there was a really good robot shooting game. Again, I have to apologise, I can't remember the title. on the GameCube it was. Again, it was an import, but God knows what it was called. But it was really good. Basically, it was you'd have like a little isometric arena. You had a storyline with talking and that going on. Then you'd have an isometric arena with various bits of sort of walls and things you could hide behind, and you had your robot, and you had to take out one or many other robots to get through that arena and get onto the next level and pick up some more parts to improve your bot. But
Metal Arms,
Metal Arms was good, but no, that was more like proper 3D, wasn't it?
Loaded. I remember Loaded on the Saturn. That was isometric, walking around shotgun, I think.
Yeah. I didn't really get into that as much. I did play it a bit, but it didn't grab me like some do. But that was quite popular for a while, wasn't it?
You had an original Xbox. Did you ever play Halo?
I did, and I think I might play the demo of it, but it didn't really grab me. Yeah, it was the game of the era, wasn't it? Everybody loved Halo, and I thought, yeah, it's good, but it didn't give me a buzz.
No, again, a different type of shooting game.
Yeah, I mean, I have enjoyed some 3D shoot 'em ups. I have, but in general, they haven't given me that same. I think it's because it's too drawn out. I think I don't really want to shoot 'em up. I think a level shouldn't go on for more than if you manage to stay alive, it shouldn't last more than about 10 minutes. to have a level that goes on for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours to just explore the whole area, pick up everything you need, and no, I mean that is some people love that, but I haven't got the time or the interest to do that. I want to finish a level, fairly quickly.
Yeah. Sorry if you can hear lots of noise and barking, and everyone's clapping for me and all the other frontline workers, but the dog's going nuts.
Right, I wish you'd be out there banging our pots.
Yeah, it's odd. It's odd.
You should be out there with your arms up saying, "Thank you."
Shut the fuck up.
Trying to get some sleep. I've done a 12-hour shift in hospital. Now you're
Would you say there was any really popular shooters back in the day that were popular in the arcades or popular on the home consoles that you just didn't enjoy? Something like Space Harrier comes up for me. That's quite a really popular one with people, and I just don't understand why that's so popular.
I think it's because it looked really good and it was a bit different. But for me now, I mean, there was a really wacky. I think it's on Dreamcast. I think it was Dreamcast. A game called Res. I don't know if you've ever seen that. REZ.
Oh, that rings a bit. It's flashy, wasn't it? Was it really bright and lots of?
Well, it was. Yeah, you were sort of like outlined. You were in a subframe of a computer. I can't remember exactly what, but it was quite clever.
Oh,
do you remember it? But that had that thing where you press your button, lock onto a few different targets, press release and press again, and then like fire. That's another shoot 'em up thing you don't see a lot of in the traditionals, but it is occasional. Going off the subject of that, as Sally is thinking about, I think my two favourite sort of subject matters for traditional shoot 'em ups is steampunk. We've got something that looks like it's like a biplane or Second World War, but it's got the capabilities of some super duper futuristic jet.
Yeah.
And I love the look of that. I love the way that can be drawn in 2D sort of games, and the way it can be, the way they light it and everything. I think that and what was it? Oh yeah, and sort of Halloween-esque sort of fantasy, Japanese fantasy ones. I really like. Which the most common is, the most recent is Death Smiles, which I've mentioned before. That's just got a very rich. It's not cheesy like bloody Disney or something like that. Death Smiles. That is one of the best shoot 'em ups of all time.
Keep mentioning it. I've not looked. I should have a look. Really.
I only saw it on the 360. I don't know if you can get it as a download or anything. If you can, I'm getting it.
Yeah. Oh, I recognise the front cover. Strangely enough.
Yes, is it like a maid-looking?
Oh wow, that looks really good.
It's one of the most visually spectacular 2D shoot 'em ups.
Yeah,
it's got a gorgeous sort of theme of this like sort of Halloween-esque. I don't know what you call it, fantasy horror, I suppose, but it's not horror in gore. It's horror as in atmospheric. Those are my two favourite sort of backdrop-y sort of styles, steampunky, and that sort of Halloween-esque sort of. But a lot of people have, there's that theme reoccurs particularly in Japanese shoot 'em ups a lot, which I'm very pleased about. I mean, I like high tech and all that. It's a bit like you're talking about robots. I've always really liked the. Did you ever see BattleTech? And it was like a game, and then came into video games. It originally was a board game, I think.
Oh, okay.
Some of them were tactics, but then they were action games as well. But I didn't think the games were that good. But I really liked the designs of the bots. They had almost like the cockpits were like something off like an old aircraft or something, like a Lancaster bomber. And it just had a real sort of warmth of character, which I really liked. But going off the subject a bit there. But yes, I think you do enjoy things. I obviously again the anime sort of, as long as it's not too over the top. Sort of, they're very much into drawing from classical, Western classical themes and giving it their own sort of twist.
Yeah,
I think they do it brilliantly, and graphically and sonically, they do it really well. But it's very much part of the genre.
Yeah, that draws me in a lot. The personality of it, because you could show me 10 different shooters, and they could be fantastic games, but they might all just be aeroplanes or spaceships. And I'll play one or two and then go, right, that's enough. Then you show me 10 shooters where the personalities are all a bit different. Like you've got that, and you had Gunbird, and you had Twinkle Star Sprites is another one that is just a bit absurd.
Yeah.
Fun to play.
Again, that had a sort of Halloween-y feel to it.
Yeah.
Sort of anime fantasy with a little bit of weird little horror things. But yeah, Japanese can do cute, but it doesn't come across as like schmaltzy. It comes across as like interesting, you know. They're cute with like a little bit of a twist, yeah. Like cute with sharp teeth, if you like. That's what I like about.
Yeah.
They do it really well, yeah.
Like Domocon thing. Is it Domocon?
Yeah.
That's what a strange looking thing when I first saw that.
Oh, that one of those. I think Waku Waku 7's got a massive back hat thing. Yeah, but yeah, I do like the surreal. That's, you know, if it's done well, it's brilliant in a game. You've got to, if you're going to be producing a system which is very similar with just subtle nuances, you've got to have something else as well. And creating a world, as I said before, is seriously important in a shooting game. And you know, people will have their favourites. As you say, I'd much rather see a robot than a fighter jet, to put it that way. Or, you know, I'd much rather see some wacky anime witch than I would, I don't know, you know, sort of a Second World War soldier. It's just my taste, you know.
And I think that's because, like we're saying, they usually, I've not come across one that's crap. They're usually well grounded in gameplay, and it's the personality that stands out. I mean, even Aero Fighters, to an extent, the characters on that are quite wacky, but the game itself is very much a traditional.
It's not.
The characters are hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, Aero Fighters, there's 2 and 3, and in fact, if it's on Japanese, I think it's called Sonic Wings. But it's nothing. It's like Raiden, but probably not as good. But again, you still like it, and you say one of the pilots is a dolphin, another one's a child, you know, like a baby. You know, so you can't take it seriously. But it's just one's a robot, cyborg, but that, you know, they're sort of squared off like an old-fashioned robot.
Robo Keaton, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I saw that dolphin, I was cracked up. I was like, what the fuck is there a dolphin in a shooter?
I think his name is Spanky. But yeah.
Spanky the dolphin.
But it adds something, doesn't it? I mean, but yes, I mean, like we were talking about Gigawings, in Gigawings too, it's all sorts of weird, in-depth sort of storylines going on, or they're hinted at, even if you don't really find out exactly what's going on, because it's shoot 'em up, you don't have a lot of time to find out what's going on. I mean, the only thing I don't like, there's been a few shoot 'em ups where you like, even if it's in English text, let alone Japanese, where you can't understand a word, you like, you know, sort of, you're trying to keep pressing the button to get through the text. That can get. I don't mind like 2 or 3 sort of little balloons worth of talk, but I don't want them going on forever. It's just shoot 'em up. It's not a right RPG, you know. You don't need a. But sometimes, I had one on the 360, something Witches it was called, and it was a good little shoot 'em up. Not the best, but not bad. I had too much. I was continually pressing my A button, or what it was, to move it along, you know, because even if I could understand it, I'm not that interested. I want to get onto the shooting, really.
Yeah.
They're creating a world, and then they're just like trying to make it like an anime cartoon with some shooting in. I don't want that.
It can kill a game.
Yeah, definitely.
And
it's a bit like having adverts. You don't want them, do you?
Yeah. There's one, again, touching on sort of a more robot mech shooter on the Switch called Daemon X Machina. And the music's fantastic. The visuals are fantastic. But there's so much talk between and it's not good. It's just pap. It's rubbish. And I'm thinking, I'll just spend half an hour tapping the bloody X button, the A button, until it's got. And I'm trying to skip it all because I'm not interested in the story. And eventually it's just like, I can't be arsed with this. It's like, you got a really good looking game, you got fantastic mechanics, but the story is shite. Why don't you just take the story out of it?
They should have an arcade mode, shouldn't they? Like you get in some games, you can have a story mode or arcade mode.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's basically
like
just a
Gundam games.
I haven't killed anything in like 2 minutes. What's happening?
Yeah.
Shoot them up, you know. It's, but I'm not like homicidal tendencies, but the whole idea is blasting things away. They're trying to get you, isn't it? So that's the thing about a shoot 'em up.
It takes the rhythm away. If you've got into a certain rhythm playing a game and tapping a button a particular way, you've got to stop. It's very anticlimactic.
I mean, there are occasions where some games are so intense, you're glad of a little bit of a break as it moves on to sets the scene. but not. I'd rather just had some lovely music, perhaps a bit of talking for 30 seconds, and then move on. You go, oh, yeah, right, start again. Let's go, and yeah.
That's why it's quite good in games when it lets you choose what sort of direction you're going, what path, which bit do you want to go down instead. That's quite helpful in games like that. So, but you don't get so many in shooters, obviously. But I think that's when they do that in games, it breaks it up quite well. They do that a lot in that beat 'em ups and things like. And Guardian Heroes is a big one with that, where you'd have really intense gameplay and then it would stop, and then you were allowed to choose a particular direction to go down. And you're like, oh, I can just sit back and you're just flicking through it. And you're like, oh, that one will do. But,
there used to be one on the Dreamcast. Again, I have to apologise for not remembering the title. It was very, very. It became quite expensive one. I think they brought out, but that had you'd have different levels. If you got killed, you go down another level. But going down level wasn't a good idea. It's sort of and it didn't. That's what I didn't like about it. It seemed to get. I'd rather just gone back and started going down a level. I think there was 3 different levels on the
game.
Yeah. It didn't thrill me, and it didn't make me want to carry on. But yeah, there has been the odd game which everybody goes on about. You get it home or you get it on your telly, and you think, no, actually,
yeah.
I mean, you really try hard for a while, and then you think, no, I don't think so. That's just going to stay in the collection. But yeah, it's the ones that keep coming back.
What would be your 5 favourite shoot 'em ups of all time?
Good one. Polestar, Viewpoint, most of them on the knee, I'm afraid.
That's all right.
Death Smart, Polestar, Viewpoint, Death Smiles. It's hard now because there's so many choices. I really like Akai Katana. That was on the 360.
Akai Katana.
I don't really. I'm not sure if I should include Metal Slug because is it a traditional shoot 'em up?
I don't see why not. It'd be on my list.
Yeah, if it isn't, then Metal Slug. So yeah, Metal Slug, Akai Katana, Death Smiles, Viewpoint, Polestar.
Brilliant.
And yeah, that would be And to me, like 10 out of 10 type of games, really. I mean, there's been so many games that were close, and probably there are other games that are as good. There were so many good games. As I said before, on the 360, for a year or two, or perhaps more, they were bringing out loads of classic arcade games. I mean, there were some of them that have been developed in the arcade and go straight on to by Cave and companies like that are very well thought of in Japan, particularly. They were just coming out, so almost like one a month or whatever. I'd be getting, Caladrius is another one of them. It was a lot, and it was a real buzz. Ketsui was one, Raiden 4, whatever it was, and it was just like lots of really. There's one called, I only played it later on, called Gwangi, which is very Japanese. Yeah, there was a good game on the. I think it was on the Dreamcast.
Sounds like a slur.
No, I think it was. No, yeah, Gwangi, Guwange.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have been K. Gwangi. I don't know. It must have a meaning, but that was. I like that, again, very traditional Japanesey. There's a few like that on the PS2. So there's another console that had a lot of good PS import games, and also a lot of them made it into the West, but on like cheap labels, so you didn't hardly hear about them. And sometimes they'd cut them about and ruin them, but sometimes it would just be more or less a sort of port.
Yeah.
And they changed the name to something stupid, instead of being like there was one thing, but it's just like it had a Japanese name like Shidoken Dio or something, and then suddenly it was called Mobile Light Force or something. Like and the cover on the British one or European one didn't tell you what the game was like. I thought it looked like 3 sort of gods from a futuristic cop game or something. And it's only because I'd read somewhere that this was actually this other game which I had on the original Xbox, and they suddenly it was. But yeah, lots of them. And anyway, when I had my massive collection of shoot 'em ups, I had a lot on the PS2. Dragon Blaze, that's fantasy, dragons involved, up the screen shoot 'em up, lovely graphics, really good game. Tengu, that was very Japanesey. That was really good.
Wow.
There's a lot of really on the PS2. There was a lot of really good traditional shoot 'em ups. I'd say Dreamcast, Neo Geo, obviously. 360 and the PS2 really has my sort of style, nice sort of 90s and onwards, or 2D shoot 'em ups. Some really good ones. There was a ton of them on the Steel Dragon. That was another one that was quite good. But yeah, there was a lot of really good games on the PS. So anybody that wants to get into shoot 'em ups and has got old consoles, I remember at the time I was picking them up really cheap as well. You know, because I found out which ones were available. Instead of going to a dealer and paying 30, 40 or 80 quid, sometimes you pick them up on eBay for like £9, brand new. It's still in its cover, in its plastic cover. So
yeah,
that was quite a good little time. I'm not one for buying much on the internet, but yeah, I bought quite a few off eBay at knockdown prices.
nice.
So yeah, it was good. But yeah, a lot of them, as you said, they go from one to another. A lot of those games reappeared on the 360 and other consoles. They're usually like enhanced versions on. But yeah,
did you get that? I think we talked about it very briefly. Panzer Dragoon remake. I don't know if you you looked at that.
No, it's not actually on the PS4 yet. I haven't got it.
Oh, okay.
Right. Well, what little I read about it said it wasn't worth making the remake.
Okay.
So, I thought, oh, it's a shame, because that was, again, that's not traditional. That's more on rails 3D. But it had some lovely music. It was nice scenery, and it was an interesting little world. But yeah, that was again, not traditional shooter, but I enjoyed it, so it must have had something. But yeah, I used to listen to the music on its own on that game. It really has some nice stuff. I used to have a big collection of like stuff I'd recorded off games years ago. In fact, at one time I had this whole drawer full of Neo Geo games I put into cassette tape. So back in the 90s, that's what you had. So as I told you before, on the cartridge games, you just put it on pause, and the sound carried on. So if you wanted to record it, you start the stage, pause it, and just record. But yeah, it wasn't ideal. And as I found out later in Japan, they were releasing game music on CDs, but you had to pay for them. They weren't cheap. But Skitron Skitron was one of the companies that did it. I used to have quite a few Neo Geo music CDs back in the day.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's another subject.
Oh, gaming music. Yeah, we could do gaming music. I'm happy to do that. Show off guitars in that one as well, because it's relevant.
Definitely. Yeah.
Don't know if we scrape the barrel with shooters, or if you want to.
There's always something else in the back of your mind, but I think we've sort of grasped the nettle with what actually makes a good shoot 'em up. And from my point of view, obviously, and that's what's given me a buzzer. But it does seem like a sort of a universal factor that you have to be drawn in. You have to want to go further, because quite often they're quite hard. If they're too easy, what's the point? Yeah. But they are, and I don't want to be wiped out in 5 seconds, but it's got to have a bit of challenge. And that is the trouble. I think some developers are a bit lazy. They just use, like in any genre, they just use a cliche. You think, oh, shoot 'em up panel like this. Well, no, I don't actually like it, because you've done nothing new, and you haven't even done it as good as somebody did it 25 years ago. So what makes you think I want to waste money on your stuff? But there've been a few like that. But
thanks for joining us, everyone. Like, share, and subscribe. Any comments in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next talk. Thanks, Graham.
Thanks. Cheers.